When it comes to the E2 investor visa, you may be wondering what type of work options your spouse will have in the United States. Welcome to the law office of Bobby Chung. Our law firm focuses on the E2 investor visa, helping professionals like you move to the United States. We are also proud to say that for the past 10 years, we've consecutively received the Client's Choice Award by ABO, which is a leading attorney review website. So let's jump right into the reason you're here. You want to know if and how an E2 spouse can work in the US. The quick answer is yes, the E2 spouse can work in the US. Now, I've got even better news for you. The E2 spouse also does not have to apply for a work permit. Okay, some of you may be feeling skeptical about what I just said because it is common knowledge that in order to work in the US as a foreigner, you need to have work authorization, which most people refer to as a work permit. Let me explain how E2 spouses are now allowed to work in the US without applying for a work permit. Stick around because I'm also going to explain what document a US employer needs to see for proof of legal work authorization. So let me explain how it is possible for an E2 spouse to work without applying for a work permit. This goes back to November 12, 2021, when the US Citizenship and Immigration Services issued a new policy. The new policy announced E2, E1, and L1 spouses have ability to work upon incident. What is work upon incident? Well, let me tell you because our goal is to break down the legal jargon for you. This is just a fancy way of saying once someone has legal status in the US as an E2, L1, or L1 spouse, then they are immediately able to start working inside the US. For the purpose of this video, we'll just focus on the E2 spouse. Before this policy change, E2 spouses were required to separately apply for a work permit using Form I-765, which took 4 to 8 months or more just to process. As you can imagine, waiting 4 to 8 months or more was very stressful for applicants eager to work or had great job opportunities. But luckily, with the new policy change, E2 spouses no longer need to apply for a work permit and can immediately start working once they have valid E2 status. So the next question is, how does the E2 spouse prove they can work? What document do they need to show their US employer that they have legal authorization to work in the United States? Well, there are 2 methods for the E2 spouse to prove work authorization, and it depends on where they applied, whether they applied for a B2 visa at a US embassy abroad, or applied for a change of status directly inside the US. Alright, let's go over method 1. If the E2 spouse applied at the US embassy abroad and has an E2 visa, which looks like this, when using a valid E2 visa to enter the US, you should receive an electronic I-94 record when at the airport or if you're crossing the border into the US. By the way, this is what an electronic I-94 looks like. As you can see, it shows the date of arrival into the US, how long you're allowed to stay in the US, and your visa status. Basically, this is evidence that you legally entered the US, and it tells you how long you can stay in the US. It is important to never stay in the US beyond the expiration date of your I-94 record. Here's a closer look of the I-94 record showing E2S. The spouse can now prove they have work authorization. This electronic I-94 record with S at the end along with an unexpired admitted until date is what your US employer will need to see. If you need to sign your I-94 record, you can go to the US Customs and Border Protection website, or just use the link in the description below. For tips on how to find your I-94 record, we also have a video link in the description for you. Hey, by the way, if you've been finding our information helpful, we'd love a thumbs up to let others know this video is worth watching. And don't forget to click that subscribe button so you never miss out on our latest E2 visa, insights, and updates. Great, let's move on to method 2. If the E2 spouse applied for a change of status to E2 status, then they should have received a form called I-797A and a new attached I-94 record at the bottom of that form. Both that form and that I-94 record should indicate E2S. This document, along with the E2S, needs to be presented to the US employer as proof of work authorization. I have a quick clarification, so pay attention and bear with me for a moment. For those who obtain E2 spouse status, through a change of status application, meaning they applied directly inside the U.S. It is important to distinguish between the Form I-797A and its attached I-94 record versus the electronic I-94 record received with an E2 visa. The Form I-797A on the left side here is issued by the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service, specifically for individuals who applied for a change of status within the U.S. On the other hand, the electronic I-94 record on the right side here is issued by Customs and Border Protection when entering the U.S. through a valid E2 visa at the airport or border crossing. These are separate documents and should not be confused with each other. We want to provide this clarification to ensure there is no confusion about what document you have and what is needed to show the U.S. employer. We get it. The legal requirements can be overwhelming and full of confusing jargon. That's why we break things down and turn the process into actionable steps for our clients. We're not just your average E2 attorneys who simply fill out forms. We're your ally and advocate fighting for your success from the beginning, even when you're deciding on what business to select. If you're looking for clarification and actionable steps on how to get started with your E2 visa journey, contact us. We'd love to help you out.
Thanks for watching our video. If you found it helpful, please consider liking, commenting, or subscribing. If you have any questions or need clarifications, feel free to reach out to us. We appreciate your support and look forward to bringing you more valuable tips about the E2 visa.